Welcome back, everybody. Whenever we talk about narcissistic, cult-like, dysfunctional family dynamics, we tend to focus on the scapegoat as being the victim of the dysfunctional, toxic family. But what if I told you that the golden child is just as much of a victim? And even though they don't know it yet in the situation because they're so busy preoccupying themselves with coping for survival by being the golden child, it catches up with them later in life. Thanks to an article we've discovered here, 3 signs you struggle with golden child syndrome for those of you who may have actually been the golden child but are still suffering because of the dysfunctional family. Let's talk. My name is Kevin and this is The Royal We. Now, before we read this article of the golden child syndrome coming out of a toxic and narcissistic family, let me remind you that I'm here to support you. Down in the description box below this video, you'll find access for one-on-one appointments with me. I take telephone calls and video calls through Zoom, FaceTime, and WhatsApp. Also, The Royal We does have a private membership available for you where you can get daily live support from me with a growing community of people from all over the world. We have a workout program for you. We have weekly fellowship to see what the Bible has to say about narcissistic abuse, and so much more, all in the privacy of a members-only app. You can download the Royal We membership app down below in the description box. And lastly, the Royal We does have merchandise available for you. You can show your support for the Royal We by getting a t-shirt, a hat, a mug, or a hoodie. And the first person to put a picture of their t-shirt or hoodie on Instagram and tag me at Join the Royal We will get a free 1-hour appointment. Now, let's get into this article together. 3 signs you struggle with golden child syndrome, according to psychology. This is by far one of the most profound and important discussions that we can have. And the reason is because we typically focus on the scapegoat of a dysfunctional family, completely unaware that many people who are suffering in life weren't necessarily the scapegoat, but the golden child. In fact, you may not even be aware that you were the golden child, because being the golden child meant that you were doing whatever you could do just to win the approval of your toxic narcissistic family members without even realizing it, putting yourself in this position just to not be abused. And so what you were doing just to not be abused and to be received and accepted actually probably placed you as the golden child in the situation without you realizing it. But it creeps up to you later in life as you start to habitually do these things that begin in your childhood simply because you were coping and trying to survive in a toxic, dysfunctional family. This golden child syndrome will follow you, and it has a pretty nasty impact on your life. Let's talk about what psychology has to say about this. According to this article, beginning with number 1, this is how you know you may have golden child syndrome. Number 1, you have a strained relationship with all of your siblings. Here's what it has to say. It says, growing up as a golden child can create an unspoken tensions within your siblings or with your siblings. You see, one of the things that we don't realize is if you are a part of this cult-like hierarchy, narcissistic family, these are the stupidest families out there that really operate out of having this pyramid. You've got the people at the top, the king, the queen, and then you've got all these subjects underneath, and people are treated based on how well they perform or whatever the case may be. And no matter what, the family needs someone to crap on or some to crap on. So really what it is it's a fight within the family just not to be crapped on. And the ones who are able to not be crapped on, either by keeping themselves busy or getting involved in sports or going out and having friends or getting good grades or whatever the case may be, they start to find themselves in this place of safety. Well, and while they're in this place of safety, not realizing that they're a golden child, they're simply just trying to not die because of their stupid family hierarchy dynamics, right? The people at the bottom who aren't doing as good in school, maybe who aren't athletic, these are the ones we typically call the scapegoats. Their giftings are different, right? And I'm not going to talk about scapegoats in this video, but the scapegoats are typically the creative ones, the free thinkers, the independent ones, the ones that see the family as being crazy, right? The golden children are the performers. So it's not like they're trying to find a golden child status. They're just performing, and they're learning that they're not being abused so long as they're performing. And when they start to perform and starts to overshadow the other siblings, well, those siblings start to grow a resentment over time. It's just natural because they realize that the one who's performing is getting treated better. The one who's more athletic, for example, is getting treated better. And their efforts and their abilities aren't being recognized because in this stupid hierarchy family dynamic, empathy isn't recognized. Okay? So here's what it goes on to say. You might have been unaware of the favoritism at the time, but your siblings likely felt its weight, leading to feelings of resentment and rivalry. It says this dynamic isn't always rooted in anything you actively did. That's right. That's what we just talked about. It's not that you did it on purpose. It's not that the golden child wants to have this rivalry with the siblings. Again, the golden child is also a victim because they're put in this position of having to stay busy, having to perform, having to get good grades, just so they don't get crapped on. That's all it is. But the other siblings see the unfairness, start to see the unfair treatment. This dynamic isn't always rooted in anything you actively said or did. It often stems from how your parents positioned you within the family structure. So you see, both the scapegoat and the golden children are victims of this stupid family hierarchy because of this broken gang cult-like family dynamic. The abuse is from the top down to everybody. And what happens is even the golden children or the golden child grows up having strained relationships with siblings that they never asked for. And maybe this is you watching this. Maybe you actually were the golden child, not because you wanted that position, not because you viewed yourself in that position, but simply because you were trying to survive in the family dynamic. And so you were a performer. You performed in sports. You performed in acting, singing, music. You did whatever you could to get good grades, get the best job. It's not that you were seeking to squash down the rest of your siblings. You were just not trying. You were trying to not get crapped on yourself. You're acting out of being it's because you're a victim too. You're not supposed to be in that position. And unfortunately, as a consequence, it created tensions with your siblings. And unfortunately, they will always view you in that tension way, that rivalry way, and you can't shake it. So the golden children oftentimes grow up based on what this is saying as having strained relationships with their siblings. Their siblings will never completely, truly honor them or like them or love them. And maybe you're wrestling with that. This is very difficult. And so this is a part of having golden child syndrome as an adult. Moving on to number 2. Number 2 says, you most likely have golden child, what is it? Golden child, I lost my train of thought there. Golden child syndrome. Okay. You might have golden child syndrome if you feel compelled to please others. Yes, this is absolutely true as well. It says this, despite how society views them, being the golden child is also a survival mechanism. That's what we've been talking about. Most golden children quickly realize that they may fall victim to being the scapegoat's replacement if they are not the favorites. Right. You see, again, it's not even necessarily that they, as children, you recognize golden child versus scapegoat. When we're children, we don't look at things that way. We're simply trying to survive and find the validation and the approval and the acceptance of those we love. That's all it is. So the golden child, if that's you, all you're doing is trying to do what you can to find acceptance. Not even aware necessarily that you just don't want to be crapped on. Like we said, you're not even aware that you're positioning yourself as a golden child. That's not the point. The point is just to survive. And as a result, you start to grow up feeling like you have to perform, you have to do good, you have to please others in order to be accepted. And this never goes away. What it says right here, and this is a problem, you feel compelled to please others. What if I told you right now that most people pleasers were golden children? Wow. Mind blown. What if the people pleasers in this life, right, are the golden children? Constantly living in this place of feeling the need to serve, to impress, to do good, to outperform, to overgive, just to survive. I mean, I want you to stop and think about this. Think about the stress involved in that. Constantly living, thinking that you have to be performing, that all your worth is what you can give. This is what it is to be the golden child. Again, I'm challenging you to change your perspective. We focus so much on the scapegoats, right? And scapegoats have it bad too, obviously. But what I'm trying to tell you, my point is there's no good position in a dysfunctional family. Whether there's a scapegoat or a golden child, none is better. Maybe when you're younger, it seems like the golden child status is the best because they're getting the praise. But as the golden child grows up, they have this constant syndrome, this constant need to, I have to please, I have to do good, I have to give, or else I'm not accepted. I'm not worth anything. In other words, it's fear-driven. Golden children grow up to live in fear that they're rejected if they're not doing something good. And listen, by the way, this one hits home to me. It hits home to me. Because in a lot of ways, growing up, I was a golden child. Not because I wanted to be that. I had a mother that was hardly there for me emotionally. She was distant. Physically, she was distant. My father bailed when I was 4. And it was just me and my brother. And I discovered over time that the only attention I would get is if I was active. And so I played sports and I did things. And yes, my dad would show up for the sporting events and my mom would be there for the sporting events. And that's the only attention I got. And so it's no wonder even now as I sit and I'm trying to do videos on a regular basis, it's difficult. It's difficult to fight against that. Just get a message out because it's going to help somebody. When inside of me, I feel compelled to almost have this perfectionism. It's got to be good. It's got to be better. It's got to be better. I need to do the video again. I got to do it again. Right? I feel compelled to please others. This can go even further than just feeling compelled to please others. This can turn into obsessiveness. It can turn into perfectionism. It can turn into, let's see what else there is, right? According to psychology, the golden child syndrome. Let's see what else we got here. Strong fear of failure. How'd I know? See, I cut myself off on the last one because I had a feeling that's exactly what it was going to say. It can, when you start to live your life trying to please others and you start to become even obsessive compulsive in a way, or perfectionist in a way, it's out of a fear of failure. This is something that has, in fact, plagued me. A fear of failure makes it difficult to accomplish a lot of things. You really have to put forth an effort to not be afraid to fail. Here's what it has to say. Most parenting experts emphasize the importance of positive reinforcement in fostering a child's healthy self-esteem. However, too much of a good thing can backfire. Placing a child on a pedestal, especially burdened with unrealistic expectations, can have the opposite effect, creating pressure rather than confidence. And I would have to say that this makes sense. See, parents or any type of a dysfunctional family dynamic don't realize the pressure they're putting on their children to perform. Without even, it's not like they're saying, you have to perform. The children learn this on their own when they're only getting praise or approval or applause or affection or love or even, what's the word for it, attention of any kind when the child is doing something. And see, that's what I discovered. When I was younger, if I did sports, if I was active, I got some attention. I got the basic requirements of what children should have at home only when I was performing, only when I was active, only when I was in sports, only when I was doing something. It's the only way I got attention. So this grew a tremendous pressure to constantly have to be active. And if I failed, I would have no attention. I wouldn't have love. Does this make sense? So this is something that we have to be aware of. So for those of you who perhaps were the golden children out there, or maybe you were the scapegoat and you watched your brothers and sisters who were the golden children for whatever reason, I hope this video helps to sharpen your perspective on that. That everybody suffered in that family dynamic you were in. Whether you were the scapegoat or the golden child, everybody suffered. Everybody in some way has been victimized and traumatized by being a part of this narcissistic, dysfunctional hierarchy family dynamic where there was no love given. And this is the truth of it. Love didn't exist. And I believe that's it. Those are the three things, according to psychology, 3 signs you struggle with golden child syndrome, according to a psychologist. As I said before, I really hope that this helps reshape your mindset around the concept of the golden child and the scapegoat. Both are victims. Both are suffering in their own ways. Whether or not you are the scapegoat who feels like you have an unfair life, or you're the golden child who feels like you can't quit performing or else you're nothing. You're a failure. Right? Either one's not good. So I don't think we need to look at the scapegoats as being worse off than the golden children. The stress of being a golden child is immense. I say whatever you are, let's learn to accept what has transpired and what took place, because we cannot go back in time and fix it. Let's work on accepting ourselves, whether we were the golden children of the family or the scapegoats. Accept everything that God has created us to be, not the narcissistic parents who were never there and didn't care. Not the narcissistic siblings who were never there and didn't care, but who God created us to be. Let's live out of that place, whether it was the golden child or it was the scapegoat. And there you'll find success, you'll find acceptance, and you'll find love. I am here to support you. Down in the description box, you can schedule one-on-one time with me. Telephone calls, video calls are available. I'd love to talk with you a lot deeper about this. If you're brand new to the Royal We, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification so you don't miss any future Royal We content. Like this video, share it with somebody who needs to watch it, and I'll be back with more videos for you right here on the Royal We. Bye.